Hey guys, welcome to Psychology of Spirituality. Saeed here. Today I wanted to delve into the psychology of mass gatherings. So I just finished a book called Journey to the End of Islam by Muhammad Knight, and in that book he documents his travels to different Islamic pilgrimage sites in Ethiopia and Pakistan and Syria and Egypt, and the last half of the book where he speaks about going to Hajj. And Hajj is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. So once in your lifetime, if you have the means to do so, you need to go to Mecca, which is located in Saudi Arabia. And he talks about the physical and spiritual complexities that come with such a huge journey. Physically, and there's been lots of news. I'm linking an article right here on a number of stampedes that kill people. And, worshippers are so enamored with being in this holy place that they'll crush each other, and he talks about that. Old ladies being suffocated, old men trying to touch the black stone, despite their livelihood being at risk. And spiritually, how do you navigate these tumultuous obstacles to find the deeper morsel of truth as to why we practice these rituals, right? And he talks about how all of these people here, they're so fixated on the ethical, on the lawful aspects of Islam. Don't kiss the stone, don't worship here, you can't do that. And he's asking himself, what's the deeper meaning behind these rituals? So with that being said, I wanted to create a video that delves into the psychology of mass gatherings, specifically Hajj, but not limited to it. Arba'in, for example, is considered the largest religious mass gathering in the world. So much of the research can apply to that, as well as other faith traditions that have large mass gatherings in Hinduism and Buddhism, even visiting the Vatican in Catholicism. So the pilgrimage of Hajj is considered a communal event in which adherents to Islam, brothers and sisters, gather for a single purpose: to submit to God or Allah. It's also an esoteric event in which individuals circumambulate, which just means they make a circle on the earth as they walk around the holy Kaaba, which symbolizes wholeness and a connection with the divine. The holy Kaaba can thus be viewed as an axis mundi, which in mythology is a term that represents a connection between the lower realm and the higher realm, so a connection between earth and heaven. Other examples of axis mundis, which are translate to centers of the world, are the Bodhi tree in Buddhism, Jerusalem in Judaism, the tree of life or the tree of knowledge, which is found in many world traditions, Mount Olympus in Greek mythology, the pyramids of ancient Egypt, or even in fairy tales such as Jack and the Beanstalk. So these are structures or places that have inherent spiritual meanings, creating a connection between the physical and the spiritual. Carl Jung bridged this concept into psychology in his term individuation, which is a drive towards wholeness, which he visualized as the circle that points towards the center, which he called the self. So thus, these ritualistic practices of making circles, and I'm attaching a video that I did called the archetype of circles that really goes more into why this prominent ritualistic practice is found in all of the world's traditions, Navajo traditions, Buddhist traditions with the mandala, and in Islam with walking around the Kaaba. From a Jungian perspective, these are manifestations of a deeper calling. So this is an orienting force to harmonize and order oneself. And I just finished a show called Westworld, and in that show, there's a maze that's a circle, and a motif throughout that show is the man in black, Ed Harris. He's trying to find his deeper self by traversing in this circle, right? So the circle is a deeply archetypal psychological symbol that we manifest in our behavior. Because this is an esoteric, an individual, a spiritual event, many schools in Islam, such as the Shia branch of Ismailism and some Sufis as well, look at Hajj as a completely internal venture, citing some of the great poets and theologians such as Rumi, who says The meaning of the Kaaba is at the heart of the prophets and friends of God. So this means that the Kaaba, which is a tesseract cube in Mecca, is the external house of God, which exists in the physical world, but there also is a symbolic spiritual counterpart. And they cite the Quran, which it says in the Quran, and all of the things we have created in pairs so that you may reflect. So certain Muslims believe that the house of God exists within oneself and you can tap into that, or it exists within the imams, who are the living embodiment or the house of gods, which is why in Ismailism, visiting the Aga Khan when he comes to your city is considered a form of Hajj. You're visiting the living embodiment of the Kaaba, of the house of God. Now going into the actual psychological research. So research studies have indicated that mass gatherings have a beneficial impact on psychological, social, and communal functions of pilgrims, such as those who travel to Hajj, including improved well-being due to increased sense of social identification and social support, as well as greater sensitivity to others' well-being. And it's important to differentiate between mass gatherings that don't have a coherent purpose. We can be around a ton of people. For example, if we go to a busy market on a Saturday, and a socially coherent mass gathering in which people identify with a common group membership, going to a sports event, going to a religious congregation. The assumption of shared identity by the individual forms a relational transformation in which strangers become an extension of oneself. So we look at other people traveling Hajj not as other strangers, but as a connection to who we are as well. This leads to greater intimacy, trust, respect, cooperation, and expectation of help from others. And Durkheim, which is a philosopher that I like, has this term called effervescence, in which an emotional transformation occurs, in which meaning is derived from belonging to a collective. And lots of social psychologists would say that that's the reason that we're motivated to be in teams, in groups, to identify with being a Yankee fan, being a Lakers fan, right? This term effervescence. So social relationships are strengthened as a result, which psychologists recognize as a social cure. So going back to that question of physical safety, a research article on 1,194 pilgrims during Hajj found that pilgrims were not threatened by overwhelming crowd density when they perceived themselves as identifying closely with the crowd. Again, this goes back to that effervescence term. And importantly, individuals who did not identify strongly as belonging to the group of Hajis or pilgrims reported increased caution and less safety with greater crowd density. Not going more into the mythology, the ritualistic aspect of Hajj itself. So one of the internal aspects of Hajj, and not just Hajj, any mass gathering, religious mass gathering, is to recognize the common humanity in all of God's creatures as we walk towards, or as we join in a circle towards a single goal. The heart and center and journey of Hajj is the Holy Kaaba, which symbolizes the restorative and transformative potential which lies in all of us. So all in all, why are we drawn towards these rituals? Right? This is a question that I have, that many struggling religious people have. What is the point of all these rituals? Well, engaging in these collective practices is really good for our mental health, as we know. Also, there's a deep call that we have, a spiritual call, and we enact these through ritualistic behaviors. Social isolation is very bad for us, and even evolutionary psychologists would say that one of the main driving forces as to why religion has been able to endure for thousands of years is because it provides this collectiveness, right? And it provides this marker for social cohesiveness. So if anything, these rituals help us in that way, towards this effervescence that we all have within us. Another thing that I wanted to end on, there's lots of controversy on going to Hajj because of the strict fundamentalist Islamic regime that runs Saudi Arabia. Namely, it's run under a Wahhabist government, which is just a much stricter form of Islam. So there is controversy as to, and Muslims speak about this, whether it's ethical to actually visit Hajj because it's such an expensive, tourist-driven economic force for that government. So if you're spending $10,000 going to Hajj, that $10,000 is going to a fundamentalist Wahhabist regime that's responsible for the death of many minority Muslims, for example, that's responsible for preaching and spreading this strict Islamist version of Islam that has wreaked havoc in our world. And again, I'm not trying to make a theological point there. That's just a point of dispute that some Muslims have. Thank you guys for joining us on today's episode. Here are some videos that I'm linking that delve into some of the same topic material. And subscribe and support the channel. I also put a link for our new lab website, mindfuluh.org, that has a bunch of mindfulness, spiritual resources and publications from our research lab. And I also have the link for the muslimvibe.com, where I put articles on, where I write articles for. So hit those links, hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you.